the Black Mountain, and Hyperborea. When we explore the dazzling twilight of antiquity, to observe the land nestled far beyond the grasp of the curiosity of those in the known world. This mystical land is a place where the imagination seeks to distinguish between reality and the myths in legends, merely seen as a blur in the shifting sands of time. In Greek, the term Hyperborea can be broken down as hyper, means beyond or above, and borea, related to the north wind or the north direction. Therefore, it can be loosely translated to mean beyond the north or land beyond the north wind. Ancient Greek lore whispered Hyperborea as a realm where springtime reigned supreme, in a land bathed in perpetual sunlight, where harmony and abundance flourished. In the book called Inventio Fortunae, in the midst of the four countries is a whirlpool, into which there empty these four enjoined seas which divide the north. And the water rushes round and descends into the earth, just as if one were pouring it through a filter funnel. It is 4 degrees wide on every side of the pole, that is to say 8 degrees altogether, except that right under the pole there lies a bare rock in the midst of the sea. Its circumference is almost 33 French miles, and it is all of magnetic stone, and is as high as the clouds. So the priest said, who had received the astrolabe from this Minorite in exchange for a testament. And the Minorite himself had heard that one can see all round it from the sea, and it is black and glistening, and nothing grows thereon, for there is not so much as a handful of soil on it. That was the writing and words of the Minorite, who has since journeyed to and fro 5 times for the King of England on business. In the depths of these waters, there are mystical discoveries of structures shaped as chambers, much like the chambers of the firmament. And the discovery of Hyperborea is credited to several poets, Greek historians, and philosophers, such as Alcaeus. In his poem, he states, when Apollo was born, Zeus equipped him with golden headband and lyre, and gave him also a chariot of swans to drive, and sent him to Delphi, and the spring of Castilia, thence to declare justice and right for the Greeks. But when Apollo mounted the chariot, he directed the swans to fly to the land of the Hyperboreans. Now when the Delphians learned this, they composed a paean and a tune and arranged dancing choruses of youths around the tripod, and called on the god to come from the Hyperboreans. Apollo, however, delivered law among the men of that region for a full year. But when he thought that it was time that the tripods of Delphi should ring out too, he ordered his swans to fly back again from the Hyperboreans, so that with the blaze of summer and the presence of Apollo, the poet's lyre also adopts a summer winterness in the account of the god Hermerius' summary of Alcaeus' poem. We also learn from the best preserved works of Pindar, whatsoever splendors we of mortal race may reach, through such he, Apollo, has free course even to the utmost harborage. But neither by taking ship, neither by any travel on foot, to the Hyperborean folk shall you find the wondrous way. Yet of old the chieftain Perseus entered into their houses and feasted among them. When he had lighted on them, as they were sacrificing ample hecatombs of asses to their gods, forever in their feasts and hymns has Apollo special joy, and laughs to see the brain ramp of the strange beasts. Nor is the muse a stranger to their lives, but everywhere are stirring to and fro dances of maidens and shrill noises of pipes, and binding golden bay leaves in their hair, they make them merry cheer. nor pestilence, nor wasting old age approach that hallowed race. They toil not, neither do they fight, and dwell unharmed of cruel nemesis. The Greek historian Herodotus also penned concerning the Hyperborean people, neither the Scythians nor any other dwellers in these lands tell us anything, except perchance the Isidons. And as I think, even they tell nothing, for were it not so, then the Scythians too would have told, even as they tell of the one-eyed man. Strabo the philosopher also states, this charge should be laid against Herodotus, that he assumed that by Hyperboreans those people were meant in whose countries Boreas does not blow. For even if the poets do speak thus, rather mythically, those at least who expound the poets should give ear to sound doctrine, namely, that by the Hyperboreans were meant merely the most northerly people. And as for limits, that of the northerly peoples is the North Pole. The mystic author Helena Blavatsky also shared her findings. The land of the Hyperboreans, the country that extended beyond Boreas, the frozen-hearted god of snows and hurricanes, who loved to slumber heavily on the chain of Mount Ripheus, was neither an ideal country, as surmised by the mythologists, nor yet a land in the neighborhood of the Scythia and the Danube. It was a real continent, a bona fide land which knew no winter in those early days, nor have its sorrow remains more than one night and day during the year, even now. The nocturnal shadows never fall upon it, said the Greeks, for it is the land of the gods, the favorite abode of Apollo, the god of light, and its inhabitants are his beloved priests and servants. This may be regarded as poetized fiction now, but it was poetized truth then. More clues are given in the Pomponius Mele. The Caspian, next to the Scythians, surround the Caspian Gulf. Beyond them, the Amazons are said to be found, and beyond them, the Hyperboreans. The Hyperboreans are located beyond the north wind, above the Riphean mountains, and under the very pole of the stars where the sun rises, not every day as it does for us, but for the first time at the vernal equinox, and where it eventually sets at the autumnal equinox. Therefore, for 6 months, daylight is completely uninterrupted, and for the next 6 months, night is completely uninterrupted. The land is narrow, exposed to the sun, and spontaneously fruitful. Its inhabitants live in the most equitable way possible, and they live longer and more happily than any mortals. To be sure, because they delight in their always festive leisure, they know no wars, no disputes, and they devote themselves primarily to the sacred rites of Apollo. According to the tradition, they sent their first fruits to Delos, initially in the hands of their own virgins, and later they sent them through peoples who handed them on in succession to further peoples. They preserved that custom for a long time, until it was profaned by the sacrilege of these people. The Hyperboreans inhabit groves and forests, and when a sense of having been satisfied by life rather than boredom has gripped them, they cheerfully wreath themselves in flowers and actually throw themselves into the sea from a particular cliff. For them, that is the finest death ritual. And finally, we see recorded in Pliny's natural history, behind these Riphean mountains and beyond the north wind, there dwells, if we can believe, a happy race of people called the Hyperboreans, who live to extreme old age and are famous for legendary marvels. Here are believed to be the hinges on which the firmament turns, and the extreme limits of the revolutions of the stars, with 6 months' daylight and a single day of the sun in retirement, not as the ignorant has said, from the spring equinox till autumn. For these people, The sun rises once in the year at midsummer and sets once at midwinter. It is a genial region with a delightful climate and exempt from ever harmful blasts. The homes of the natives are the woods and groves. They worship the gods severely and in congregations. All discord and all sorrow is unknown. Death comes to them only when owing to satiety of life. After holding a banquet and anointing their old age with luxury, they leap from a certain rock into the sea. This mode of burial is the most blissful. Some authorities have placed these people not in Europe, but on the nearest part of the coast of Asia, because there is a race there with similar customs and a similar location, named the Attisai. Others have put them midway between the two suns, the sunsets of the antipodes and our sunrise. But this is quite impossible because of the enormous expanse of sea that comes between. Those who locate them merely in a region having 6 months of daylight have recorded that they sow in the morning periods, reap at midday, pluck the fruit from the trees at sunset, and retire into the caves for the night. Nor is it possible to doubt about this race, as so many authorities state that they regularly send the first fruit of their harvest to Delos as offerings to Apollo, whom they specially worship. These offerings used to be brought by the virgins, who for many years were held in veneration and hospitably entertained by the nations on the route, until because of a violation of good faith, they instituted the custom of disposing their offerings at the nearest frontiers of the neighboring people, and these of passing them on to their neighbors, and so till they finally reached Delos. Later, this practice itself also passed out of use. From all accounts, we learn that Hyperborea was actually a paradise. A Hebrew translation presents it to be a garden, and according to the Vedas text and the Persian Avestas, Paradesha was literally located in the sense of the word at the pole. In the scriptures we read from Genesis 2:9-10, in the middle of the garden where the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, a river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. Psalms 48 verse 2, beautiful for situation. The joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. Enoch also shared in chapter 26 verse 1-2, and from there I went to the middle of the earth and saw a blessed well-watered place, which had branches, which remained alive and sprouted from a tree which had been cut down. And there I saw a holy mountain, and under the mountain to the east of it there was water, and it flowed towards the south. And so we continue to learn that even where Hyperborea and the Black Mountain exist, according to the book The Earth of the Hindus, is anywhere in the temple of nature there was to be an altar. It could only be here. That it was here finds a fresh and unexpected confirmation in the singular agreement of many ancient religions and mythologies in associating their paradise tree with the axis of the world, or otherwise with equal unmistakableness locating it at the Arctic pole of the earth. And so we know of this paradise tree, also known as the world tree or the ash, to be connected directly with the Black Mountain in Hyperborea. The world tree is also an example of the toroidal field, which branches up into the heavens and down into the underworld. It is said that the ash is the greatest of all trees and best. Its limbs spread out over all the world and stand above heaven. 3 roots of the tree uphold it and stand exceeding broad. One is among the Acer, another among rim giants, in that place where aforetime was the yawning void. In Norse mythology, The yawning void is also known as Ginamgegip. Ginamge is usually interpreted as derived from a verb meaning gap or yawn, but no such word occurs in Old Norse except in verse 3 of the Eddic poem Voluspa, Ge var Ginamge, which may be a play on term. Ginamgegip, or yawning void, appears as the primordial void in the Norse creation account. It is said to be faced toward the northern quarter, became filled with heaviness and masses of ice and rime, and from within drizzling rain and gusts. But the southern part of the yawning void was lighted by those sparks and glowing masses which flew out of the Muspelheim. And it is quite clear, with all these written and recorded accounts of Hyperborea and the Black Mountain. Join me for part 2 as we delve deeper into the discovery of Hyperborea.